to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well today. Thanks for joining me on the show. Appreciate you. Looks like the tech, we've had some tech issues here. Excuse me. We've had some tech issues of late. Boy, we're up and running. I know that, but Twitter X is not our friend today. Anyway, that's all right. Maybe they're none of our friends. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Welcome to the show today. We're going to have a good show today. Thanks for joining me. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I'm on the show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays, as you're well aware at this point, Justin Fensterman hosts the show, and we just have a good time. You know, we talk some sports, we hopefully entertain a little bit. We share the product over at FantasyGuru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner to get signed up for any and all of our products. And, you know, we're doing a lot of baseball and football talk. So that's kind of the plan today. And we'll throw it up on the screen here. And we got something a little bit different today, too. Again, I'm Ray Flowers. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, all those places. Blue Sky at the Ray Flowers. You can, again, find me here 4 days a week. You can find me on Jeff Mann's show, the Elite Sports Show, which is Monday through Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That show also includes me on Wednesdays. I'm there 3 to 6 on Wednesdays. And we'll have an announcement next week. Yeah, I got another announcement coming. We got a couple announcements coming. I hinted at this yesterday. We'll talk a little bit about the plans for DFS, the plans for wagering, and the plans for SiriusXM. So stay tuned for that. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Twitter polls. I ran a bunch of Twitter polls over on Twitter X at VRayFlowers. And why not? Let's have at it. Let's discuss the results. So that's what we're going to do. We'll talk a little bit about bullpens, injuries. That's kind of the theme of the day, by the way, right? Everyone's dealing with this now. The season hasn't even really started, even though we've had a couple of games. Injuries, and they're everywhere. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll visit in about 25 minutes, as we do every Friday, with Russell Clay. Russell's going to join us. I have a Dynasty League scenario that I'm going through personally, so I wanted to, of course, use him as a foil to that, to ask him what his thoughts are. So we'll get that. He's our Dynasty League guy at FantasyGuru.com too. So, you know, he'll be sharing thoughts on Dynasty Leagues. We'll talk about a bunch of players too. You can see there: Bryce Young, JJ McCarthy, Travis Etienne, Cooper Kupp, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Olave. We'll discuss those players and more with Russell Clay in about 25 or so minutes. All right, normally I put my face really big and I say, hey, everybody, look at me. And we have the little, today we're going to do a little different. We're going to go back to Ray being little, even littler than that, because we're going to do some Twitter polls. So let's get into it, folks. Twitter polls. Ran a bunch of them, again, over on Twitter X at the Ray Flowers. And these are the results. And, you know, if you have any comments or questions or concerns or anything that you're feeling like sharing, let us know, because we're here to do that with you. If you're watching live on Twitter X at Fantasy Guru site, if you're watching live on Facebook, facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. If you're watching live on YouTube, youtube.com/Elite Plus Network, you can leave comments, questions. You can interact with one another in the chat rooms, and we will see that and address them throughout the show. So John G, by the way, says, originally had Creighton but switched to Louisville because of Fence. Other than that, I had a perfect first day. Good for you, John G. As I shared on this show and I've shared everywhere, college basketball means nothing to me. I'm sorry. I'm probably, I guess, the only person in the fantasy world that says that. But I got too many other things I'm doing, so I don't even know who's in the tournament. Like, I know that there's been the big hullabaloo, and I know that there's talk about the government getting involved in lawsuits because teams did or didn't make it. Hope you had a good time there, John. Hello, Paul. Welcome. Thank you for coming to the show. So go ahead and leave those comments, folks, and we'll address them throughout the show. All right. Let's talk a little bit about what we got going down today in terms of these Twitter polls, again, at the Ray Flowers. First one, which traditional fantasy baseball category would you like to get rid of? Now, I think all of you know that I have written for years. I didn't do it this year directly. I did post an article in the draft guide at FantasyGuru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can sign up for the seasonal baseball product, the wagering baseball product, the DFS baseball product. If you have any questions, send a note to support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. The fact is that I think that we record player performance improperly in a lot of ways. I've often spoken about solds, saves plus holds. I've often spoken about on-base percentage. Solds would replace saves. On-base percentage would replace batting average. Those are two easy, obvious things I feel like we really should do. I know a lot of you are resistant to that. I understand, but I think we should really do it. So I ran this poll here. Batting average, wins, saves, and other. Other got 13%. So, and again, that's great. Other people want to change other things too. Cool. But I think the three main ones are batting average, wins, and saves. Wins are not reflective of how our pitcher performs. 6 shutout innings, no decision. 5 innings, 6 runs allowed, victory. Just dumb. So how did the voting turn out? Well, wins actually came out on top. The number one category people want to remove is wins. 48% of the vote, almost half the vote. 24% were saves, 15% were batting average. So, there are a lot of people, and again, there's 4 different categories here. All of them had at least 10%, so people were kind of mixing and matching here. The win category at 48% in Tout Wars. As my phone rings in the background, if you can hear that, I apologize. Oh, by the way, really heartened by the fact that people wanted to hear more Ray Flowers. So later this evening, I will be recording a couple of podcasts that will go up on Saturday and Sunday for members only at fantasyguru.com. So check those out this weekend. 48% wanted to replace wins in the league that I'm in, that I was just speaking of, Tout Wars. We've replaced saves with solds. We replaced batting average on base percentage, and we replaced wins with innings pitched. I kind of like wins plus quality starts. If you want to keep the wins a part of it, right? If you just want to throw wins in the toilet, I do think that with the way the game is played nowadays, that innings pitched matters. So that's the way Tout Wars handles it. Let me know how you guys handle it if you make the switch. Next one up. Which first-round selection is most likely to fall on his face in 2025? Corbin Carroll, Paul Skeens, Fernando Tatis, or other? It's funny, I've had a couple of responses to this. Well, no one's going to fail. It's like, well, no, they're going to fail. The data for the last 20 years is inconclusive. I mean, it's conclusive. The data is conclusive. It is without question. It's without doubt. It's affirmative. Players are going to fail in the first round, period. In fact, there's about a 35% chance that a top 15 player on draft day returns a top 15 season. So roughly 1 in 3 guys is going to live up to draft day cost. Then we know there's going to be injuries. We know players are going to struggle. There's going to be a blowout somewhere. Okay. So of these names, Carroll, Skeens, Tatis, and other, how did the voting play out? 18% said Paul Skeens. 20% said other. 27% said Corbin Carroll. 36% said Fernando Tatis. So the winner / loser is Fernando Tatis. I understand and get that. Fernando Tatis has basically shown an inability to play a full season of games. Maybe that changes. He's got like another 10 years left on his contract, whatever the hell it is. But maybe that changes. But for right now, he's basically looking at missing 20, 25 games as kind of a baseline. That's really scary for a first-round pick. Talent-wise, performance-wise, sure. But it's tough to be taking a guy in the first round that just doesn't appear capable of playing 150 games. I find it fascinating that Paul Skeens is the lowest on this list. Day after day after day after day after day after day. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. Pitchers go down with injury day after day after day. Taking a pitcher in the first round is a losing some battle. All right? Don't do it. Paul Skeens, though, the most likely of the 3 to produce a strong season and not fail. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's more likely that Tatis and Corbin Carroll failed to live up to cost than Paul Skeens? Remember, Paul Skeens could pitch fantastically this season, throw 180 innings of great work, and win 9 games, and be pitcher 18. Strange one to me. Next up, how many pitchers do you plan on drafting in the first 10 rounds of your fantasy baseball league? And this is something that we have talked about over at fantasyguru.com. I have a series of 3 articles. It's not the perfect draft, right? Because that's a misnomer. But it's how do you handle pitching on draft day. There's drafting pitching early, the middle path, and then the late path. So check those 3 articles out over at FG. Kind of shows you what your team might look like if you went pitching early, pitching in the middle, or pitching late. How many pitchers do you plan to take in your first 10 rounds? 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 plus. One pitcher in the first 10 rounds, that got about 6% of the vote. 5 or more pitchers in the first 10 rounds, that also got about 6% of the vote. So there's a very clear answer here to the question. The question is asked, how many pitchers in the first 10 rounds? The answer is 2 to 4. That's what all of you said. 2, the answer, 39 of you said 2. 3 or 4 was 49%. Now, unfortunately, there's not enough room here. I mean, I probably should have gone 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the next option, but then someone would have said, well, I want to draft 5. So, it is what it is. But about half of you said 3 or 4, and I think that's right. Now, I'm not taking the pitcher in the first or second round. That's not how I would do it. But at the end of 10 rounds, if you got 3 or 4 pitchers, I think that's about right. So I'm in agreement with the way this poll played out. Next up, how long do you wear? And I had this. So do you wear slippers? I wear slippers every day. I work at home. I'm very fortunate. I wear slippers every day. And there is a tradition where I get new slippers every holiday season. And sometimes I get them more frequently than that. Sometimes I get them for my birthday too. But usually every year I get at least one pair of slippers. And my slippers, I get Olave or Uggs. Like I get nice, fancy slippers, not throwaway ones, right? So they last a long time. They have soles on them and the whole thing. My question was though, how long do you wear your slippers before you replace them? 2% of people said 1 to 6 months. 8% of people said 7 to 12 months. A third of the respondents said they don't wear slippers. Shame on you, non-slipper people. And then 57% said 13 plus months. You? And this is kind of what my thought was, because my slippers were getting to the end of their 1 year. And it's like, these things are kind of rough, they got some food stain on them. I wore them out in the grass. They got a little stain there. You think about the inside of it, your foot's going in this thing every single day. Like, how clean is this? You can Olakai's like you can take the sole out and wash it, but you're still the top part. Isn't that kind of gross? Am I the only one that thinks it's kind of gross that people wear their slippers? Over half the people, the easily winning percentage was 13 plus months. All of you just wear your slippers if you wear them for 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah. So that prompted the next poll. Do you wear socks with your slippers? Because if you're going to keep your slippers for 2 years, you better be wearing socks. 51% said they wear socks, 49% said they don't. So apparently, and maybe I'm the only one that thinks this, I think it's absolutely gross to think you're wearing your slippers for 2 or 3 years with no socks. Your feet get hot. Some days they're sweaty. They're dirty, all day long. Like, I would love to see the bacteria count. And I'm not a germaphobe at all. I would love to see the germ count on your feet. Just saying. So for those of you that are wondering why I talk slippers, again, that's the reason why. Okay, back to baseball. How often do waivers run in your fantasy baseball league? And this has been a long-standing back and forth situation with me, is that there's a lot of people that seemingly complicate fantasy baseball. And look, I've said it before, say it again. However your league runs, if it works for you, keep doing it. I'm just a dude. It doesn't matter what I say. If you want to run waivers every day, if you want to run them twice a week, if you want to run them once a week, whatever works for you. My opinion is running them once a week is the right call, right? Because I want you to build a good team, right? I don't want it to be that we can just, the draft doesn't matter because we're open waivers every day. I don't want there to be open waivers every day because that's not fair. East Coast, West Coast time differences. I don't want there to be waivers run every day because if I had something happen at work or with the family member, I couldn't pay attention to my team. Someone else is sitting in their basement every night for 3 hours looking at the baseball numbers. They have an advantage. Maybe you like that because you're saying to yourself, if I'm putting in the 3 hours every night, I should get the advantage. Okay, so there's a variety of ways to do that. Me personally, waivers should run once a week. Should be able to change your lineup every day, but waivers should run once a week. Here, how do they ask? So I asked, how do they run in your league? 1 time a week, 2 times a week, every single day, or it's just an open free-for-all. Like you don't even run waivers, it's just open waivers. That's the absolute worst scenario that could possibly be in existence, and 26% of people have it. Ugh. I've written about this, talked about this, podcast about this. We've talked about on the show over and over and over again. Having open waiver wire with no rules whatsoever is awful. It's just awful. 26% of you have that. 30% of you have 1 time a week, which is, again, what it should be in my opinion. 10% of you have 2 times a week, which, okay, I can do. It's a lot of work, but I can do 2 times a week. Okay. 35% of you have waivers daily. I think that this, and from an outside perspective, this is one of the reasons why fantasy baseball is struggling as a universe. It's too much work. It's just too much work. What normally happens with the daily waivers is, I know a lot of you play head-to-head too, all that we're doing in daily waivers is streaming pitchers. Some leagues have a limit of roster moves you can make a week. Some leagues have a number of innings that you can't go beyond in your fantasy league. Some leagues just, it's open all the time, and someone made 312 moves this year. Like, to me, that invalidates the draft. It doesn't, there's no point of trying to predict who's going to rebound. There's no point of making trades because you're just going to the waiver. I don't like that at all. Again, if it's what you want to do, have at it. I'm not telling anybody that doing it daily is wrong. I'm just saying that is one of the main reasons why fantasy baseball is not moving forward, is why the number of users in fantasy baseball is shrinking. It's why it's becoming more and more difficult to find people to play fantasy baseball leagues with. It's just too much work running waivers every day. That's just me. Next up, in a 5x5 fantasy baseball league, who would you prefer to roster on the hill? Jacob deGrom, Tyler Glasnow, Freddie Peralta, Blake Snell. All power arms, all guys that are dynamic on a per-start basis, all guys with workload concerns. Who would you prefer to roster? 16% said Jacob deGrom, which was last, which is pretty interesting because according to ADP, that's not how it's playing out. NFBC's ADP, that's not how it's playing out. Respondents here, good for you, 16% Jacob deGrom. 17% Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta doesn't, I don't think I've gotten a single Freddie Peralta question the last 3 months. Kind of interesting. Everyone just kind of knows what he is and is accepting of it, and they got it, right? 17% of people said they prefer him. 22% said Tyler Glasnow, which obviously means the winner is Blake Snell. Blake Snell, 45%. Blake Snell doubled everybody else in this poll. The pitcher you would prefer to roster. Blake Snell, who in his career has thrown 180 innings 2 times. Blake Snell, who in his career, and you say that and you say to yourself, oh, well, Ray, who throws 180 innings? And, okay, fair. Let's be more real about this. He's thrown 180 innings twice in his career. You know how many times he's thrown 130 innings in his career? Twice. He's played 9 seasons in the majors. 9. And he's thrown 130 innings twice. He has never thrown 130 innings in back-to-back seasons. Oh, and by the way, last year he threw 104. Interesting. Easily the winner, double everybody else. Next up, in a 5x5 fantasy league, who would you prefer to roster on offense? C.J. Abrams, O'Neal Cruz, Michael Harris, or James Wood? This is one of the closest votes I've ever seen. James Wood had 26%. Michael Harris had 26.5%. O'Neal Cruz was 25%. C.J. Abrams was 23%. So the winner here was Michael Harris. Interestingly, though, enough, again, 23 to 26%. Like, they're virtually the same. A handful of votes in either direction changes this. All 4 of the guys, Abrams, Cruz, Harris, and Wood, almost identical. I think the answer probably comes down to your type of league, your style of league, the size of your league. These guys' ADP is roughly similar, so it's who you take in the first couple rounds of your draft. But really fascinating that this one kind of all the same, and it's really interesting too. Michael Harris is a great player. Michael Harris has, been very good for years. He's been a little up and down with health. He's been a little inconsistent with performance, and frankly, it doesn't seem like with the addition of Jurickson Profar, it doesn't seem like Michael Harris is going to hit near the top of the order because you've got Profar probably hitting leadoff now. Then you get Acuna back and he'll lead off. Michael Harris could be hitting 6th again. And all these other guys, Woods, Cruz, and Abrams, they're all hitting higher than that. So that's interesting that people gravitated to Michael Harris. Most experienced, most exciting lineup, might have the lowest spot in the batting order of any of the group. Next up, which pitcher has the most 5x5 fantasy value in 2025? Tyler Glasnow, who we just talked about, Shane McClanahan, Spencer Strider, or Brian Wu. Brian Wu, 22%, Shane McClanahan, 21%, Tyler Glasnow, 25%. All those guys virtually interchangeable. The winner obviously was then Spencer Strider at 32.5%. We talked about that earlier this week. This poll was taken back in February, so way before Strider pitched the other day, almost a month ago. In fact, it is a month ago. It's 21st today. Strider was dominant the other day in his first outing in spring. He was down 1.5 miles, 2 miles an hour in his fastball velocity. His release point was a little different. His extension was a little, so he wasn't back to pre-surgery physically, Spencer Strider, but the results were dynamic. So I'm not overly worried about that. Plus just one outing. we're hopeful at this point in time to see Strider back by the end of the month of April. Hopefully he'll be pitching in the big leagues by the end of April. How many years have you played fantasy baseball? Here's the last one. How many years have you played? 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 plus. 0 to 5 is 8%. 6 to 10 years is 12%. 11 to 15 years is 19%. And then 16 plus years, 61%. I love, and I say this all the time, I love it when there's history and tradition. Someone says, oh, I've been in the league since 1993. That's fantastic. I love that. It is a little concerning from a business perspective, from my side of things here, that 15 years and under is not even close to the amount of 16 years and over. Like you add all those three up, you're at 40% roughly, right? Well, we're over 60% for 16 plus. And this is another problem that fantasy baseball has. Everyone playing fantasy baseball is 45 or plus. Like there's not many 22-year-olds that are playing fantasy baseball. They're playing fantasy football. They're playing DFS. They're into the gambling markets. They're playing MMA or golf or whatever the heck it is. So I love seeing the history in fantasy baseball. I really do love seeing it, but it makes me a little concerned because again, if everyone's been playing for 16 plus years, you're all in your 40s plus, what's going to happen in 10, 12 years, so I wish we could find a way, and that's something we've talked about a lot at fantasyguru.com, finding a way to engage the younger folk, whether it's with new rules or new styles of play, because we don't want everybody to just be 57 years old like me. I'm not 57, but older like me. By the way, I was getting some work done on my mouth yesterday, and the hygienist said, oh, how old are you? And I had stuff in my mouth, so I went, brr. And she goes, oh, 31. And I was like, why, thank you. I wish I was 31. No, I'm 51. But not 57, 51. So I'm in this group of old people too, right? But hopefully we can find a way to get the youngsters more involved. So there was the Twitter polls. Again, at @DRayFlowers. Check it out over there. Some baseball news before we talk to Russell Clay in a few minutes, talk some football. Let's get into it. Let me close this sucker down. There we go. Josh Hader has been terrible this spring, and that's a concern. He walked 3 guys yesterday. Didn't allow a run in his outing on Thursday, but walked 3 guys. His velocity has been down about 3.5 miles an hour. And this is another one of those storylines. Like I haven't seen it talked about much. It could be absolutely nothing. There's no reason for Josh Hader to go balls to the wall. There's not. His fastball is obviously different than everybody else because of the release point and all that kind of stuff. And so, okay. But 3.5 miles an hour is significant. Haven't heard he's hurt. Haven't heard there's concerns there, but for a guy that's off the board as a top 3 closer in every draft, 3.5 miles an hour down. Is he really just saving it for the regular season? I guess. But he didn't have his control yesterday either, 3 walks. So just wanted to point that out because I haven't heard anyone ask me questions about Josh Hader. Hey, Ray, no one's asking about that. 3.5 miles an hour is significant to be down that velocity number. Brandon Hyde told reporters that he's unsure yesterday about Felix Bautista being active for the first day of the season. This is not shocking news. Now, the Orioles have said all spring that they thought he'd be ready for opening day. They had a plan. He'd go out there, he'd make 6 or 7 outings, and he'd be ready to go on day 1. Yeah. And he, also Felix Bautista has been drafted almost everywhere as a top 10 closer. Can't feel good about that right now, can you? I mean, again, this is not setback. This is not Bautista's going to be shut down. There's none of that. He's just not quite ready. But he's not ready to throw 18 pitches? Like, that's always concerned to me. When a reliever isn't ready, that's concerning to me. Is it concerning to you? It's to me. Ryan Weathers. Now, this sucks. Ryan Weathers, who just moved up the rankings at fantasyguru.com. Ryan Weathers, who was mentioned in the Breakout Pitcher of the Year article at fantasyguru.com. Ryan Weathers, who's on my Dynasty League team. Left forearm strain. Ugh. They're saying he's going to be shut down for a couple of weeks. They think his return is 4 to 6 weeks away. Crusher killer. Ryan Weathers, all the excitement. I mean, it's gone. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully it is 4 to 6 weeks. He showed up in camp. The release point, the velocity, all these things were exciting. The velocity was up, and now he's got a forearm strain. So let's hope that the now 25-year-old will be okay and back pitching in 6 weeks. Really disappointing news. Really disappointing news to Ryan Weathers. He was one of those guys that was looking like he was going to have a breakout this season. Going back to the Orioles, we'll get a couple of questions here, so we'll get to those in a second. Going back to the Orioles, Gunnar Henderson is continuing to work out. He's moving in the right direction, but quote unquote, they're running out of time for Henderson to be available on opening day. So again, Gunnar Henderson, much like his teammate Felix Bautista, appears to be okay, but may not be ready for opening day. Both Bautista and Henderson could start the season on the injured list for the Orioles. Neither with a concern long term. But, Ryan, we talked about this with Henderson. If you wanted to bump him down 3, 4, 5 spots, I said I was fine with that. I wasn't getting aggressive. I, at this point in time, still wouldn't be aggressive. If you're able to draft Gunnar Henderson at pick 15 or something like that because someone's worried about this news, I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with just taking Francisco Lindor at this point. Should be fine, but we're not positive he's going to be ready for opening day. Chris Paddack pitched very well yesterday. Chris Paddack, 7 strikeouts, 4 2/3 innings, 1-run baseball. I've said it before. I'll reiterate it again. Paddack is a guy I like. Is Paddack a superstar? No. Is he gonna throw 170 innings this year? Even though they're trying to make us believe that that's possible, I don't think so. But I think Chris Paddack is a very reasonable streaming option. So keep that in mind once the season gets underway. Kris Bubic, I've got a lot of Kris Bubic questions and comments, and I'm not really sure why. 3 2/3 innings, gave up 6 runs against the Reds yesterday. Didn't pitch well. Still going to open the season in the rotation, barring something really crazy for the Royals. But Kyle Wright's returning at some point from injury, maybe by the end of April. So be cautious with Kris Bubic. Kodai Senga looked good. Unearned run, a couple of walks in 3 2/3 innings yesterday. He's actually got a 9-2 strikeout to walk ratio in his 9 innings of work. Looked pretty good this spring. So just an update on Kodai Senga, trending back toward being a good pitcher. He was really good 2 years ago. Last year was a disaster with the health. 2 years ago, he was pretty good. It looks like he might be trending toward that direction again. And then Kumar Rocker, 8 strikeouts over 4 2/3 innings yesterday. His spring has been wonky with all the moving parts. Jack Leiter seems to be ahead of him in terms of getting a starting spot. The Rangers also signed Patrick Corbin to help for Cody Bradford and the miss there of time to start the season because of health. So Rocker probably not in the rotation to start the year. Still a live arm. He just hasn't pitched well this spring. Now, yesterday, great. 8 strikeouts in 4 2/3 innings. Love seeing that. A reminder of when he's right, how good he can be. But there's some trepidation with him at the start of the season in 2025. Before we talk to Russell Clay, a couple of questions here from you folks on baseball. David P. says, hey, Ray, what are your thoughts about Cam Smith? Thanks. Keep up the good work. We've talked about Cam Smith multiple times here on the show, David. Cam Smith has still got a chance to break camp with the Astros. He's had a very good spring. The question is what happens when everyone gets healthy? Is Christian Walker going to be there? What are they dealing with in terms of Cam Smith and his position? He's forcing the Astros to seriously consider looking at him early in the year here. But again, this is a scenario where they've got options, they've got weapons. It's not as certain he's going to break camp with the team. If he does break camp with the team, how long does he stay? There's obviously a write-up about him over at fantasyguru.com as well. Trending upwards, reserve round pick in a deep mixed league. I'm not against that, but it's not a certainty that he's going to even make the team. Still don't know that for certain with the way the roster's playing out there with the Astros. Morning from Spain, says Henry Vega. Morning from Spain. Hello, Henry. Boy, Henry really wanted to see Russell today. He's checking in from Spain. Really appreciate that, Russell. Paul M. says, do we believe that back in the day, fantasy baseball was the only game in town? It was new, exciting, and when we had to read the newspaper and box scores, fantasy baseball was a slower game. Yeah, fantasy baseball was actually, if I'm not mistaken, fantasy football was actually created before fantasy baseball. Fantasy football was created in the Bay Area, I think in the 50s by that guy with the Raiders. Fantasy baseball really wasn't until 1980 with the folks at the rotisserie. So fantasy football was actually created before, but it just didn't catch on widespread. Baseball did catch on widespread. I used to do the box score thing myself in the newspapers and all of that. So I'm totally with you there, Paul. Today, Paul also follows up. With the immediacy of information, I find the season so long and painful to keep up. It becomes more of a burden to me than enjoyable. And I don't think you're wrong with that. I understand that. And frankly, we talked about this a lot. The length of a Major League Baseball season in terms of weeks, and the length of a basketball season in terms of weeks, and the length of a hockey season in terms of weeks, it's all almost the same. Like they're all roughly 6 months. Like it's almost the same on the calendar, but baseball's every day. So, and there's more categories in baseball potentially. There's more positions in baseball, absolutely. So it is more of a grind. So I understand that point of view. I wish it wasn't true, but I understand it. Paul says that baseball could be cut in half. And that is something, Paul, that we've discussed a lot at fantasyguru.com, making the baseball season 2. Because there's a lot of people at the halfway point of the season say, screw this, I'm going to football. So they stop paying attention anyway. By the midpoint of the season, a lot of people's teams have either exceeded their expectations or stunk to high heaven. So they stop paying attention anyway. So doing the half season thing, I think it's a really good idea. That allows the fantasy football people, if they don't want to disappear and just go play that. That allows you to actually have 2 champions in fantasy baseball. That's always neat and fun. And it allows you, if you put a team together that is just decimated by injuries in the first half, it allows you to redraft in the middle of the season. So I do like that idea, and it is something we've discussed a lot about at fantasyguru.com. All right, go over to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. You can join us there. You can send a note to support at fantasyguru.com as well. But it's a Friday, and you've heard me talk here a lot today. Remember, you'll hear me talk a lot more this weekend. I'm recording a couple of podcasts over at fantasyguru.com for those of you that are members at FG. But for now, it's time for football. Fridays, 12:30 Eastern time. We talked to Russell Clay. Let's bring in Russell Clay, who I saw get really excited when we saw that we had a listener in Spain. How you doing, Russell?
I did. I mean, that's illustrious territory over there for Henry Vargas.
Yeah, I mean that's legitimately halfway around the world.
I gotta say, the name Paul Maradajan.
Yeah,
that's a sick name too. He's like a closer. What are those pitchers? What do they do? They throw like, the
submariners.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'd have like a .73 ERA.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, you like that name? Wow, coming in hot. Thanks to the listeners. Russell Clay's picking up on what you're putting down. How you doing, Russ?
I'm good, man. Another Friday. We got March Madness. It's a great time of year.
Are you really rocking the March Madness? Are you focused on it? I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit.
I have fun with it. I let Ted Schuster and Scott Bondar do the heavy lifting, but yeah, right. I've always liked college basketball. I grew up playing basketball, so that's my main playing sport. So It's fun to see the college kids out there, and yeah, it's a good sport.
I know that you're not vertically challenged, but you're not a tall guy.
Right.
So were you more of a passer or a shooter?
Oh, 100% shooter. Okay. I was a very good shooter, Ray, but once you get to high school, if you're 5'8", they just block it. So it doesn't matter if you're a good shooter.
Well, I was the tallest. I've told the story before. I was the tallest kid in school till like 14. Yeah. And so I was like 6'2" as a sophomore. So I was great.
But you were the one blocking me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was. But the problem was everyone else kept growing, right? And so by the time like you get to your senior in high school, guys are 6'5", 6'6", and it's like I played power forward and center my whole life. I can't now go play shooting guard. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, so that was my basketball career. Until my height became not an advantage. It's like, well, I spent the last 18 years playing on the blocks. I can't go to play up top now. So listen to us, Russell. Luckily we found fantasy sports and we're able to stay involved that way. So yeah, exactly. We got that. I had a question before we dive into some actual specifics with players today. For those of you that don't know, Russell Clay is our Dynasty guy over at fantasyguru.com. I'm in a Dynasty league, been in it for years, like 10 years. And we had basically a defection of a bunch of owners. Kind of just, you look at the standings last year, a couple of teams just, and they just said, yeah, I'm out this year. So we have 16-team league with 50 roster spots. It's a full NFL, like it's a full-on IDP, the whole thing. And there was this debate, how do we handle losing teams? Do we just do a 12-team league? And we settled on a 12-team league, which is fine, right? But then the question became, what do we do about the players? And the league voted, and the league said, let's redraft. And I'm not going to, it's what everyone wanted to do. Again, I've been in this league forever, so I was like, okay, what would you suggest in that scenario? Because it's kind of like, man, I kind of feel robbed. My team was good. I haven't won the championship the last 3 or 4 years. My team was good though. I got Drake May last year, Justin Fields. Here we go. Like how do you handle that when you're losing owners like that? Because one, you can kind of plug in. If it's multiple owners, do you redraft?
So this is the season long versus dynasty situation, right? Where I talked to my buddy Nathan Powell, who I've been doing dynasty leagues with for over a decade now, and he's running into the same exact thing this offseason of what do we do with these, 2-division, 24-team leagues where 6 guys are leaving every year, 4 guys are leaving every year. There is no great solution, but it does reveal that this is the hobby portion of fantasy football, right? Where we want to have fun with it. We want to have somebody win. Obviously, there's prizes every year, and you can make a decent chunk, especially if you're winning a 16-team league. You're probably going to win a decent chunk of money if you do take it down. But this is the total other end of, all right, we're all in a league together. We want a fair resolution. And we also can acknowledge if there are a juggernaut team or two, maybe it's just best to start over and redraft. Or the solution he was talking about is you take those 4 or 6 teams that are gone and you have another draft and you reconsolidate those other 12 teams. So I'll be curious what you guys end up doing with that league, but he ended up cutting down. He said this was a tough year for Dynasty, and he ended up cutting down 2 to 4 teams and going with it with a new draft. So, there's a ton of different ways to go here, but relegation is not something I'd ever heard of before this year. I do think it can work, though.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Yeah, actually, the way it was set up, we have 2 16-team divisions. So we have a full NFL.
Yeah.
Full NFL, right? And so now it's 12 and 12. So that's just, we lost, I guess, 8 teams. In baseball, what we did, I'm in a Dynasty Baseball League. That's a 14-team league, 50 roster spots as well. So full Dynasty team there. What we did is we had 2 teams that left, but we got 2 new owners. And what we allowed the 2 teams that had the new owners to do is to take all those players on those 2 teams and do a draft. So they were able to pick amongst the 85, 90 players. They were able to do a back and forth draft. So they weren't able to take players from the entire player pool, but they weren't just stuck either. So that's kind of what you were suggesting.
Yeah.
Your guy did too.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, it's one of those things. It's like when you're really in a dynasty league. And this is kind of rare. We talk about this with users all the time at FG. Again, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. A lot of people are in dynasty leagues that last 3 or 4 years, and that's just over, right? And we always talk to them like, do you want to make trades for picks in 2028? Is your league going to be? So it's nice that these leagues that I'm in are going to be around, but you end up in that point that's just kind of difficult. And again, I just feel kind of, and again, I'm not in the first. I don't know, would I go 10-3 last year? I had a good team, 10-4 last year or something like that. I had a good team, but I wasn't the best team. I just kind of like, oh man, because now it's like I got to redo it, which is exciting. But then there's the next.
Right. It's the unspoken truth of Dynasty is that you can play it like a redraft, and most of the time you're going to be right.
Well, and that's, I kind of, right? And it's like, did I just take Patrick Mahomes in the second round? Like, well, we'll see how the team turns out. So okay. Anyway, I just wanted to see if there was a way or if the way we were doing it made sense to you. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Bryce Young. Let's talk a little bit about some players here, Russ.
Sure.
Bryce Young, not good based upon expectations. Obviously, others drafted later than him, much better. Benched last season, came back at the end and was effective. And this is. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if he settles in as Derek Carr, is it that bad? Obviously that's not what he was expected to be when he was drafted. When I say Derek Carr is a rough comp, that sound fair to you, or did you see more with Bryce Young down the stretch last year that makes you even more excited?
So Bryce Young is A1 in the theory that coach is essential for quarterback now. And what we saw last year was Dave Canales be an awesome coach and recognize, Ray, this is the thing with pitchers, not to do a baseball analogy, Please. But don't they don't they sit pitchers down all the time and say, all right, we got to send you back down and you'll come back. We still believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
That was unheard of for quarterbacks.
Right.
It's like, if you get sat, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You're a wrap. We're sending you. But there's a new era of quarterback development where he sat him down, let Andy Dalton sacrificial lamb it for a month, and then brought Bryce Young back, and he looked like a totally different guy. And I trust Dave Canales to develop this quarterback. So that's what I'm looking at now. The coach quarterback combo is essential. And I'd argue that it's way more important than anything beyond having even with Mahomes, it's like, if he never had Andy Reid, I don't know. What if he went to the Raiders, or what if he went to the Pats, post Belichick or something like that?
Right.
He's probably going to be awesome, but probably not this awesome. So I'm in on Bryce Young because I'm in on Dave Canales. If they go and get off to a slow start and Canales is fired mid-season, then we could be looking at a new team for Bryce Young. So I would look at all these spots as package deals now, and it's way too complicated for just relying on the quarterback to do it all now. So that's my new stance, and I'm pretty high conviction on you can't have good quarterback development in a bad situation.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. By the way, your boy Paul says, my new nickname is the Submariner. Thank you, Russ. Yeah, buddy. Look at that.
Paul.
So, you're just tossing out nicknames all over the place, Russ.
Paul Maradajan, 0.73 ERA.
You're the new Chris Berman with the nicknames. I like it. You mentioned the coach and how the importance of the quarterback. Well, Sam Darnold last year was a nobody, relatively speaking. He goes to work with Kevin Connell. Fantastic season. J.J. McCarthy. What are we doing with J.J. McCarthy? Because he's got that exact scenario you just talked about with Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
He's got a dynamic wide receiver, a strong wide receiver too, a really good tight end like the Pearsall. They've got the strong running back duo in the backfield. Like, it's all here, Russ. Now, he missed the season with injury. I guess there's still some debate about Aaron Rodgers and all that crap. But if J.J. McCarthy's under center in week 1, what are we expecting?
So building on this, Rich Mileto was really high on J.J. McCarthy heading into last year. And I was more on the undecided portion. But with this new philosophy I have, when you break it down, we kind of have the answer already. He has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and a great coach. That's almost cheating. That's as good as it gets. That turns Sam Darnold into 35 passing touchdowns and almost 4,500 passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be in. I'm going to be in. And fading J.J. McCarthy in, he's basically floating to a quarterback one season. He doesn't even have to be good. Now, when we get to the playoffs and we get to where the defenses have, 2 weeks to plan for the guy, that's where, all right, we need the Pat Mahomes, we need the Josh Allen.
Right.
But regular season, yeah, I'm in. I'm very in on JJ McCarthy, and he's going to be just fine. So
you're basically saying that it would be stupid for the Vikings to bring in Aaron Rodgers.
I think that would be crazy. Yeah. Okay. Unless they know, unless it's a wrap. We saw with Trey Lance, Kyle Shanahan was like, we're done after 2 games, but unless they're done, I would try to develop the young guy, and they can carry him even if he's not great this year.
Eric S. says, great point, Russell. The system is often overlooked. The coach, critical for the quarterback. If Joe Montana was drafted by the Jets, we would have never heard of him. Don't go that far, Eric.
Whoa, Eric.
Go Montana. The point obviously is valid. But, you can't. And it's the same thing with Mahomes, right? Like, I think Montana had that it factor. He just did. And so would he have won 4 Super Bowls? But I think he would have been just fine. But may not have been the same as it wasn't with Bill Walsh. So, so that's a good point. Okay, and we got a question here from Hal. What's going on at QB in Indy in the Dynasty lens? I mean, obviously you've got Richardson there, and they're kind of still saying Anthony Richardson's their guy, but they're kind of not. And, it's one of those scenarios where it's like, well, he's working with the new guy this offseason to work on his mechanics, but they brought in Daniel Jones. Where are we at, Anthony? I don't care. Anthony Richardson, to me, I don't care. I don't think he can play quarterback in the NFL. What say you?
We're seeing this a lot more as well with quarterbacks, where Anthony Richardson came in his rookie year and looked pretty good and looked super athletic and got hurt 4 times, in that 4-game stretch. And he came back last year and it was just a shell of himself. So getting the Anthony Richardson back that rookie year in that really small sample may not happen due to all that injury stuff. Daniel Jones, I'm intrigued because I do buy I do buy the coaching in Indy. I do buy that roster. And Daniel Jones has shown at times he can be pretty competent, even with less than positive circumstances. So I'm in on Daniel Jones winning that quarterback competition. The other problem is, so with Bryce Young, there was no quarterback competition. It was, all right, if the bottom falls out, we have Andy Dalton, but we want Bryce Young to be our guy. This one is kind of, all right, well, this guy was kind of our guy. He's not really it, but we'll try Daniel Jones. So that type of situation could get ugly. And if they're swapping quarterbacks, that's bad quarterback development. So I do think Daniel Jones is the guy there. Let's see if they try to make that happen or they try to force A-Rich in there.
Yeah, see, in my 16-team Dynasty League that got canceled in 12, I had Daniel Jones, Drake May, Justin Fields. Like, come on, man.
3 starters.
Yeah, last year was terrible, but this year was going to be really good. Anyway, Russell Clay of FantasyGuru.com. We just got a report a couple of minutes ago on Twitter X from Gary Dolach, who's covered the Steelers forever. His report is the following. I'll just read it. Aaron Rodgers is at the Steelers facility today. An indication to deal with the team could be forthcoming per sources. Don't figure Aaron Rodgers going to team headquarters unless he's going to sign a deal. On the surface, let's play it out, Russell. On the surface, him going to Pittsburgh seems like a good thing. They've got a coach that's not going to allow him to do any nonsense. They've got weapons on out wide. Seems like okay, but is this going to work? I don't know. I'd like Aaron Rodgers. Can he follow the rules? It would, would the coaching staff there put up with his nonsense? I don't think they would. So what say you?
That is a steady situation for the regular season. So, man, that is a tough one because he's getting to the point where he's so old that they just lose it. I mean, Drew Brees at the end was not Drew Brees. Peyton at the end was not Peyton. Even Brady, he was fine his final year, but it wasn't Brady anymore. Was it the Jets or was it Rodgers just being cooked? So I will say throwing to Metcalf and Pickens is a lot different than Allen Lazard and a non-play knowing Mike Williams. So that I'd be intrigued just because Rodgers to Metcalf and Pickens is very intriguing, but you have to imagine they'd be more run heavy. Mason Rudolph.
He's a backup in Pittsburgh. They lied and said the other day that they'd be fine with him starting. They wouldn't, but
so for fantasy, I would be in if we walk into week 1 and it's Rodgers the starter, but man.
Another year of Aaron Rodgers coming in. Russell Clay at FantasyGuru.com. A lot of wide receivers to talk about with you, Russ. Did we talk directly about Cooper Kupp since he signed with Seattle? We didn't, did we?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe we did. Yeah, I don't think we did. So I wanted to get your take. He signed that 3-year, $45 million deal.
Yeah.
It seems, and I forget who, I must have been talking to Tyler about this. It seems redundant because Cooper Kupp and JSN are kind of the same guy on the football field. Like, I guess this basically means that Seattle's really going to button things down. And they're basically going to be a Pittsburgh-like offense. They're going to run the ball, try to control the clock. They're not, neither Kupp or JSN's necessarily a deep guy. So who's stretching the field? They lost Metcalf. Lockett's been let go. What do you think, Cooper Kupp, that signing with Seattle?
Love it tactically. Love what they're doing from a wide receiver standpoint there. Not sure Darnold is the guy to bring them to glory, but fantasy-wise, the problem with Kupp, especially if you're drafting a best ball right now or you're looking at a dynasty, is he has not been able to stay healthy the last couple of years, and when he has been on the field, it's not quite Cooper Kupp from 2020 or 2021. So recognize that it's a guy at a different stage of his life. However, Adam Thielen has been the man the last couple of years as a value. I got to see what that ADP ends up being, but I do think he could do the Adam Thielen and Carolina type move.
Okay. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Let's shift things over to the Saints. I mentioned Derek Carr earlier in the show. Alvin Kamara is 112, but still chugging along. Taysom Hill, I guess, is still technically on the team right now. I don't know. Derek Carr is going to be their starter in week 1. The receiving core is a disaster, really. They need Rashid Shaheed to stay healthy. He had some good moments last year, but obviously wasn't able to stay on the field the whole game. But a lot of this offense is really going to be determined by Chris Olave. And we know that Chris Olave has been a very impressive player in college and into the NFL. He's had a myriad of head injuries, though. At this point in time, we're fully expecting him to play. But there is that wild card factor. That next hit could be it. So how do you view him seasonally and in a dynasty scenario? Chris Olave, he's a really tough one for me to feel good about giving people advice with.
So when we're doing rankings, we have to put Chris Olave in a reasonable position. Mm-hmm. But if I'm in a dynasty league, if he's in the top 3 to 4 of the ADP when I'm up to pick, pass. Yeah, I'm just passing. That's the honest opinion right there. I've seen this type of stuff happen too often, and I'm just passing. There's too many other guys around his value range that I feel much safer about. Now, could Chris Olave go on a 3 to 4 year run where he doesn't get hurt? Certainly. But like you said, could it be week 4 this year after he has a great month and then he's out for the season? Brandon Cooks, if you guys remember, there was like a 2-year stretch where he took 3 or 4 really big shots to the head, including in a Super Bowl, and I just crossed him off. And he had a few more good years, but I don't want to deal with the every week. All right, one more concussion and it's a wrap thing. So that's what we're looking at. Chris Olave is a little younger. They're just so much better about concussions now that you can't get away. You literally cannot get away with it. And sometimes you'll see on Sundays, they'll try to get away with it. And then, LA or New York calls in and they're like, no, get the blue tent going. We got to get that guy out. So 10 years ago, you can get away with it. And it's not like that anymore. They rule with an iron fist on the concussions now. It's a wrap. So I'm out.
Out here in San Francisco, when you use the term out, it seems like every 5 minutes when signing season started for the NFL, the Niners are losing a guy. Like, it's just every bleeding guys. Everyone's going. Now, on offense, I mean, losing Deebo Samuel is the real big hit there in terms of the skill position players. Trent Williams coming back, which is very important. But this offense is getting old. Williams is almost at the end. Christian McCaffrey, no one the hell knows what he's got. Deebo is gone. Brandon Ayuk's coming back from a significant knee injury. I think it's probably unlikely he's good to go in week 1, right? So a lot of what this team's going to do offensively might end up being on the shoulders of Ricky Pearsall. Who is Ricky Pearsall? And do you see it the same way, Russell?
Yeah, first round pick in 2024 for a reason. They have Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Kittle, and Kyle Shanahan. They'll make it work. And if Christian McCaffrey's back or not, I do wonder if they bring someone in in the draft at running back. I'd be much more curious about that. They're going to be fine at wide receiver. They just seem to make it work there. And Purdy is really good at making his surroundings work. Last year was, that was a, what do they call the mud thing? A mudslide. It was like, it just kept rolling downhill. And by week 10, everyone was hurt. But if they can keep, 3 to 4 of those wide receivers reasonably healthy, they're going to be just fine. And I like 49ers rebound this year. They tend to go in waves. So Pearsall, I'm in.
Final question or final situation to ask you about, Russell, is what's going on in Buffalo? They signed Josh Allen to the huge contract extension.
Yeah.
They bring in Josh Palmer, who certainly brings an element that the offense could use, a guy that can stretch the field a little bit. They've got Dalton Kincaid, who was extremely disappointing last season, given what he did as his rookie season. And those are the two guys I really want to focus on. The addition of Palmer and the expectations for Kincaid. How does that look in 2025 for that duo?
Yeah, so everyone's viewing Josh Palmer as an outside wide receiver, which is interesting because I always viewed him as an intermediate to big slot guy. And they have him, Coleman, and this Kincaid situation. First round pick, we all viewed him as, okay, this guy's going to come in. He's going to be an Evan Ingram type. And he has not been an Evan Ingram type by any means. Very curious signing to me. That doesn't feel like all right, we're bringing Josh Palmer in to be his own guy. It feels a little like, all right, we're bringing Josh Palmer in to fill a role here that maybe Kincaid is not filling. So I'm still willing to wait on the development for Kincaid, but he's not a tight end prospect, really. He's not known for his blocking. He is a receiver first slot guy. So the fact that they're bringing in guys like this, they drafted Keon Coleman as well. That's not good to me. So they also brought in Amari Cooper last year. These guys are all the same, and they have Khalil Shakir already. So not good for Dalton there, especially as dynasty owners. But again, at the end of the day, you do have the tight end for Josh Allen. So still hope there, but I'm much less optimistic than I was going into last year.
So in my 12-team dynasty league, you're telling me that I had George Kittle. That was my lead guy. You're telling me in this redraft I'm doing that if you get Dalton Kincaid, it's fine, but don't be reaching for Dalton Kincaid.
Definitely don't reach at this point, yeah.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. Russ joins us every Friday, almost at Thursday. Every Friday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. We talk football, obviously. What do you got cooking? You're cranking out some player profiles for these youngsters? Is that kind of where we're at on this point of the calendar, Russ?
Player profiles, that is this portion of the season. I did one on Tuesday, Dylan Sampson. We had a bunch of others coming out this week. And we're waiting for the NFL draft, and it's a great time of year because we're consolidating, we're building. And of course I have the roster coach live stream that I'm on with Tyler Beaker, Rich Mileto, and sometimes Armando Marsal. So it's a good
7
time.
7:00 Eastern Tuesdays.
Yep.
All right. How's Clay's Corner doing?
Clay's Corner's good. We've had a few people on. We're getting a lot of snacks. My nephew was on. We had Tyler Beaker on a few weeks ago. And he suggested some gourmet popcorn. So good stuff going on there.
Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Russell J. Clay. Russell J. Clay. You can see him here every Friday at 9:30 Eastern Standard, or 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 Pacific Time. You can find him over at FG. He's constantly in Discord answering questions and all that. He's running the Discord on the Dynasty stuff for us at FG. Obviously, not just the Dynasty guy, as you heard today. Russ, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next Friday. Have a good weekend. Enjoy your basketball. Hope you don't get any shots blocked if you go to the local Blacktop and shoot the hoop this weekend.
Me too, Ray. Thanks, man.
All right. He's Russell Clay. I'm Ray Flowers. We'll be back here on the show on Monday. Look forward to the weekend. A couple of, again, podcasts coming out for the folks of you that subscribe over at fantasyguru.com, doing a little baseball, a little extra in addition to the show in the morning. So check that out on the weekend over at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner and let us help you have success in 2025. For us, I'm Ray. Been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.